Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Ham Nation is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by DX Engineering. DX Engineering offers practically everything you need to outfit your shack, plus the fastest shipping in the industry. In-stock items ship the same day, Monday through Friday until 10 p.m. Eastern. For more information, visit dxengineering.com/hamnation and by ICOM. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation.
This is Ham Nation, episode number 266 for September 21st, 2016. Bob helps you build a coaxial dipole. Hello, everybody. This is K9EID. I'm Bob Heil, and I'm located in the Ozarks. And we have a wonderful show tonight. And it's a worldwide show. And when we come back in a minute, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. But in the meantime, let's run around and see who else is here. And there's a lot of great people. Down in California, we have Gordon West. Hi, Gordon.
Well, hi there to everyone watching Ham Nation. And for those tuning us in on an alternate frequency, I've got Don Hill, KE6BXT. And tonight, we are going digital with our discussion on digital amateur television. Back to you, Bob.
All right. That's very good. We're looking forward to it. Nice to see you, Don. And then we go down all the way down in the old Bayou country. There's good old Don. Don Wilbanks, how are you doing?
I'm awesome. I noticed on Gordon's guest's shirt, he's wearing the Last Man Standing Amateur Radio Club shirt. I've got some quick news for you. Last Man Standing is now in national syndication. The Hallmark Channel, CMT, and Freeform, which used to be ABC Family. And the first episode, 6th season, is this Friday night at 8/7 Central. So be watching Last Man Standing. It's season 6, a television show with ham radio on it. Besides this one, Bob, who knew?
Yeah, you got it. You got it. That's great. We'll be watching. And then we have our technical whiz kid, George Thomas, down in Mississippi. George, how are you?
I'm doing well, Bob. It's been an interesting week. It started off, I showed up at a transmitter site that I had to put on the air and never been to before. Had the wrong kind of connector on the Heliax when I got there. So I ended up pulling a double MacGyver, and that got it on the air. But we won't go into that. We've got Randy's project tonight. He's going to complete it. We're going to find out how it works and what he thought about it.
We're ready for that. And for everybody that's tuned in, maybe for the first time, we have probably the best of all of our people in the wings, and that happens to be Valerie, who's going to give us some real insight as to what's going on in the DX world, the long-distance paths around the globe, and Amanda out in Colorado. She's watching the chat room, and if you're not tuned into the chat room, you might want to do that. And take a good listen to what's going on through your speakers and your radio and whatever. But you can also online join us in the chat room. This is a very special night because it's the first night that the Twit Network and Ham Nation is being broadcast globally. WTWW is a large shortwave transmitter located in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's on 5.085 on your dial in the shortwave band. And Ted Randall and his family keep this going. They are broadcast engineers that keep most of the transmitters in Nashville going. And they have a wonderful, wonderful setup going. This is a 100,000 watt transmitter. They have a second one that's 200,000 watts. And it's just amazing how they get across the pond in both directions. Most shortwave stations are on either the east or the west coast. Well, they have limited, very limited coverage, whereas WTWW in the center of America really gets out and goes. And as you're seeing on your screens right now, if you're watching, that's their website, and it's showing some of the transmitter site there and the antennas. And they couldn't be with us tonight because they're at the National Association of Broadcasters show. And so Ted and the guys and gals there will be back with us next week to give us a little more insight as to what's going on. In the meantime, just put in Ham Nation show number 212. And if you go look at our show 212, you'll have an interview that we had with Ted, and he had all of the slides and stuff from that. It's really cool. But Ted is a ham, W8PUM. He's the caretaker of those wonderful stations, and we are just so happy to be a part of his program. His program includes Dave Ramsey and Art Bell and all kinds of wonderful things. So we're now up on the big transmitter as well as here online with Leo's wonderful Twit network. So we're going to start off things tonight. We're going to go back to California, and we're going to learn something about digital amateur radio television from Don Hill. Don, it's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back on the show. My first show was episode 12, way back in the early days. But before we get into digital amateur television, I want to put another plug in for Last Man Standing. I've got a shirt here for Last Man Standing Amateur Radio Club, because last night I was up on the set working the radio, and we did over 100 contacts. Wow. And most of the contacts so far, I think we're done it 4 times in season 6. They've been on 20 meters or 40 meters. We're going to do a D-Star one. So dig out your D-Star equipment, go to the KA6 LMS on QRZ, and that'll have a link to the K0XTT Facebook page, where we always post what mode we're going to be on and what frequency we're going to be on. So check that out. I was there for the taping of the first show of the season, which is going to air this coming Friday. So that's a good show. I got to see that one being taped as well. One of the reasons I wanted to come on tonight is this is the 6th year for the Digital Amateur Television QSO Party. It's coming up this Friday. And the first Digital ATV QSO Party was in 2011, when Peter from Australia decided it would be kind of nice for celebrating the 100 years of Radio Victoria, or 100 years of amateur radio in Victoria, Australia, if he could link a ATV repeater in the U.S. with a Melbourne repeater. And we did that. We had such a good time. We've been doing it every year since, and now it's going to be the 6th year. If you want to find out more about it, you can just Google DATV QSO PARTY, all one word, and that'll take you to a website with links to where we're going to be streaming on YouTube Live. And you can also participate if you have Skype by Skyping into DATV QSO Party Skype name. We do ask that you get your Skype request in early so that we can call out and the calls coming in don't interrupt the people that are already on. So we're looking forward to our 6th Digital ATV QSO Party coming up this Friday, starting at 5 o'clock in the evening, California time, 8 o'clock in Ohio. And the previous day, they're going to be doing contacts across Australia, VK3, VK4, 5, and 7 areas. So they're going to have the check-ins there. That would be about 3 o'clock in the morning in California. So they're not looking for a lot of California check-ins, but that doesn't mean if you're a night owl, you can't get on Skype and go ahead and say hi at that time as well. Peter Cousins, VK3BFG, is the coordinator for the Australia area. We're going to be bringing in Arizona as well as California and Ohio this year.
And you're doing that all digital, no longer analog? Do we still have analog
Well,
ATV?
all of our ATV repeaters in California still have their analog inputs. So the old equipment, like we were showing in episode 12, like this, this is an AM visual sideband ATV transmitter, and this is the new DVB-T transmitter with an HDMI input. You notice it's got a Cat 5 connection over here. That's so we can stream on the internet right out of this box. So there's a lot of integration between the digital side of amateur television and being able to put that kind of stuff on the internet. This is great if you're going to have a studio in your house, but if you're going to go out there and do amateur television in the field, there's a new technology coming out. It's called mesh networking, and we use radios that look like this. This has the antenna and the radio, the little Linux computer, all built into this unit. And these nodes self-discover other nodes. And then once you have a network, you can set up a camera like this. Or if you want a pan-tilt camera, you can have a camera like this.
Wow.
And these kind of cameras really shift the paradigm. It used to be that you have a camera operator and he would basically control the scene. But with the new technology, it's the person watching that can control the pan and tilt of the camera. Or multiple people can watch the camera at the same time. Or you can have multiple cameras on the network. We do an event every year with San Juan Capistrano, and we have about 12 nodes and about 6 cameras providing real-time video into the sheriff department. Now, this camera has a lens on one side, and it has a lens on the other side, because this does a spherical image. So when you put this image on the mesh, any of the users can pan and move the camera around in any direction they want without interfering with the other people, because you're basically streaming a spherical image over an IP network.
Wow, that is terrific. Now, Don, how can our viewers and listeners learn more about the latest transition from analog amateur television, which I do, over to digital?
Well, you're probably talking about Amateur Television Quarterly at atvquarterly.com. This has all the latest information about what is trending around the United States and overseas in the amateur television world, whether it be digital or analog. And we're probably going to be having articles on the new mesh technology for doing video as well. If you want to learn more about mesh technology, I'd recommend that you go to ocmesh.org. That stands for Orange County Mesh. And it tells you what we're doing in Orange County and the surrounding counties. I've been doing presentations for about 3 or 4 years on mesh technology, back when we put the original 4 nodes in Orange County. And now we have over 100 nodes in Orange County, and over 170 if you count the nodes that are coming in through our internet tunneling to New Jersey and the Bay Area and places like that.
Wow, that is terrific. Now, Don, is this the end of analog ATV? Do we have to get rid of our gear because repeaters are going over to digital?
No,
we
still
don't have a phase yet.
We don't have to get rid of anything. It'd be like saying I'm going to get rid of my Morse code because I've got a single sideband radio. So it's just another mode. There are benefits and challenges with digital. You can use less power with digital. The picture is either there 100%, or it's not there at all.
It's not like snow we see in the background.
If you have a marginal picture on analog, you're going to see a snowy picture. If you have a marginal picture on digital, you're going to not see any picture because it just won't sync up. Also, there's a little bit of a time delay with digital, so that if you're doing a fast QSO where you're going from one person to another, you have to be able to pause a little bit, because once you turn your transmitter on, it takes a while for the other end to sync up. But we have systems in California that have both analog and digital inputs. At this time, all of our outputs are either analog or we're streaming them over the internet. So we have IP addresses that people can go to and watch the amateur television repeaters in California and Arizona just by going to a program called VLC and putting in the IP address and looking at the RTSP stream.
Wow, that is terrific. Well, Don, any last words on where our viewers and listeners can learn more about the latest in amateur television?
Well, as I said back in episode 12, atn-tv.org is the amateur television network, and ocmesh.org is the Orange County Mesh website, and aredn.org is the Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network. These are the guys that write the firmware that we put on to commercial Wi-Fi equipment like this to turn it into a self-discovering mesh node, so it can self-discover all the other nodes that are out there, and we can advertise the services that we have available.
Wow. Well, Don, thank you so much for coming off the set of Last Man Standing last night and joining us tonight for the Amateur Television Network and the latest of digital and ATV. Don?
And if there's anybody in the chat room that was able to make a contact with us, go ahead and put your comments in the chat room, and I'll check that after the show.
All right. Well, Don, thank you so much for being our guest, and we look forward to seeing more of you and hearing more from you on the Amateur Television Network, and have a successful weekend Friday and Saturday coming up. And again, where may our viewers and listeners tune in this weekend to hear all the fun?
Go to Google and Google ATV QSO PARTY. And I think that Google probably still lists it as the Amateur Television QSO Party for 2015, but they haven't updated that link yet. But when you click on it, it will be the current information for 2016, and there will be links for the YouTube page, as well as the British Amateur Television Club page, where we're also going to be streaming the video live.
Oh, that is terrific. Well, there you go, the latest of all that's happening with amateur television. So now I think we're going to go over to the other Don and find out what's happening down in his neck of the South USA. Don.
Yeah, it's good to share the show with another Don tonight. So that's pretty awesome. You know, I don't know if you've checked the calendar. Today is the last day of summer. Fall begins tomorrow. And that means that the cooler weather is on the way, and winter will be here before you know it. So this is prime time to get out and do a little maintenance on the exterior part of your ham radio setup. That, of course, being your antennas, specifically your tower. Before it gets too cold to do it, and after it has been too hot to do it, fall is the best time to do your tower maintenance. And DX Engineering has everything you need for that. Comprehensive lineup of towers and accessories to ensure that your external, and that is your antenna system, is ready for another winter. And of course, you know, if you don't have an antenna, you ain't got squat. DX Engineering makes it easy to erect your tower with products from American Tower Company. They carry the entire line of American Tower products, including a wide range of sections, bases, brackets, accessories, and depending on your antenna, the Emerite towers will work too. Self-supported guide or bracketed situations. They're all hot-dipped, galvanized for superior corrosion resistance, and they're double bolted to give you an extra strong junction between the sections. You don't want it falling down. Roan Tower, probably the first name that you think of when you think of towers. You'll find that at DX Engineering. That means you get access to the entire Roan line, 45G, 55G, the legendary 25G. And DX Engineering also carries genuine Roan accessories, guying hardware, work platforms, anchor rods, everything you need. Both Roan and American Tower products available separately or in handy prepackaged kits. They eliminate a whole lot of component matching guesswork. And also DX Engineering has the advanced design thrust bearing. 2 key benefits, and that includes ball bearings. They ride on an all-metal surface, not a seam like other thrust bearings, which gives you longer service life. And it can handle much greater static loads than the other models. That reduces stress on the rotator, makes rotator service possible without removing your antenna. And the new advanced design thrust bearing fits a 2-inch outside diameter mast and most common tower sizes. And of course, if you're going to mount a cross member, you got to do it securely. And DX Engineering has genius clamps. They have hundreds of uses. Any place you need to accommodate 1 to 2-inch OD tubing clamped at right angles, the genius clamp is exactly what you need. Remember, even if you're ordering a big tower section, DX Engineering will work with you to arrange hassle-free shipping and delivery. No guesswork, no additional charges, because DX Engineering is the best at shipping. They ship faster than anybody else in the industry. If you get your order in, for instance, by 10 p.m. Eastern tonight, and if it's in stock, literally, it will be on a truck headed your way tonight. Proven products, expert advice, the best, most knowledgeable people in the business, DX Engineering. They help you shrink the globe. I want you to request a catalog or go online and shop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at dxengineering.com/hamnation. But be sure you get the catalog, because it's nice to have that book in your hands. It's just, there's something about going back to the old Sears catalogs. Just, of course, DX Engineering isn't that thick, but there's just something about having that paper catalog in your hands that, I don't know, I just like that. But of course, online works too. dxengineering.com/hamnation. Your way is their way. And we thank DX Engineering for their support of Ham Nation. We couldn't do it without them. Now let's take a look at the news of the week from Amateur Radio Newsline. From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2029, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, September 21st, 2016. This is a special report on the huge announcement out of Washington, D.C., that the House of Representatives passed H.R. 1301, otherwise known as the Amateur Radio Parity Act. Paul Brown, WD9GCO, has more.
The measure now goes to the Senate for similar discussion and vote. While this is great news and brings hams one step closer to potential freedom from restrictive land use rules and covenants, one ham would like us to remember that we also need to work on our state legislatures to pass companion bills to strengthen the message of H.R. 1301. Larry Scantlin, KE0KZ, has been directly involved with a similar bill in Missouri. Scantlin moved back from Florida when he retired and into the house where his new wife had been living in Wentzville, Missouri. Shortly thereafter, he decided to become active in ham radio again. And then came a surprise.
A friend of mine gave me a vertical antenna. I put it against my deck. My wife and I went on vacation to Branson, came back, and I had received a letter in the mail from the city of Wentzville informing me that I was in violation of city ordinance by this antenna. Well, I thought that was rather strange. You know, I was well aware of HOA issues, but not with the city. But the bottom line is I was able successfully to get them to change the ordinance in favor of ham radio operators. Not just me, but there are approximately 100 licensed ham radio operators in Wentzville. Not only did their ordinance restrict outside antennas, but it was written in such a way that you couldn't even have amateur radio equipment inside of your home unless you filed a request to have that equipment in your house. You had to actually file and pay a fee.
That experience opened his eyes to the potential plight of others.
In that process, I discovered the reality is I'm not the only one who deals with these kinds of issues. And more importantly, with respect to the HOAs. And as I became familiar with what the Amateur Radio Parity Act was on the federal side of things, I felt like oftentimes it's the states who end up determining these things anyway. We're independent United States. And oftentimes, even though there may be federal legislation, it's always helpful to have a companion legislation at the state level. That gives it that much more weight in the legal course of action that ends up happening.
Scantlin and his team managed to get a bill sponsored by their local representatives and then got good news, followed by bad news.
We were able to get through the House. We successfully won all the votes all of the challenges through the committees, the two committees that had to go through, as well as the full House floor debate and vote. And then it was submitted to the Senate. And then we started the long and hard process again of trying to, relay to the senators just how important this was. It was submitted to committee, and on the committee was two or three people that were very pro what we were trying to accomplish. Unfortunately, the chairman of that committee, for whatever reason, took the position to table the matter, said there wasn't enough public interest. And I found it very, very concerning that one man could make a unilateral decision, even after the House representatives. But even after all that, and there were several people who were on his own committee that were, wanting this to move forward in debate, he alone made his decision to stop that.
Larry intends to keep fighting and will work to get the bill brought back up before the Senate. He wanted to emphasize that even if restrictions don't affect you now, you never know when life may dictate that you have to move, and you may very well end up without the ability to practice amateur radio. So it's important to all hams to get behind efforts such as these and what the ARRL is doing in Washington. He also said that it was crucial for all hams to get the word out to the community about what amateur radio really is, how we are all tested and licensed, and provides a crucial communication service in times of emergency. In other words, we all need to work together to build up our image. For the full conversation, please go to our website, arnewsline.org, and click on the Extra tab. We also encourage you to write to your senators in support of H.R. 1301, as this is critical to the future of our hobby here in the United States.
For more on this week's amateur radio news, please listen to the current Amateur Radio Newsline report on a repeater near you or online at arnewsline.org. And be sure to visit the extra page for the full 19-minute interview. And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at www.arnewsline.org. With Paul Brown, WD9GCO, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wellbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. And now, here's Dr. Tamitha Skov with the solar update.
We say goodbye to a coronal hole that gave us some fast wind and a little bit of a fizzly solar storm, nothing like what we had a couple weeks ago. And a new active region crops up quite quickly, kind of on the west, and it may fire off something big before it disappears behind the west limb. Those stories and more in the news this week. Compared to that huge solar storm that we had just a couple weeks ago, this week everything's been pretty quiet. We do have this big coronal hole that's been giving us some fast wind, and we were hoping that it would bring us yet more solar storming and more aurora, but it really hasn't done that. The configuration of the solar wind isn't quite right, but it actually has probably helped you amateur radio operators get better propagation on the bands. Meanwhile, we've been watching a couple of these other regions here. We're looking at a filament here that might lift off, but there's just not a lot going on. The only interesting thing is watching this little active region here near the west limb. It just kind of pops out of nowhere, and it's forming really fast. And what that means is that it's a bit unstable. So it may pop off a couple decent flares before it rotates onto the west side. Switching to our M-flare threat meter, you can see we are still at having low activity when it comes to solar flares. This is because we're continuing our descent down to solar minimum. We're well below the seafloor with the X-ray flux and continue to be that way, except for just a little bit. You can see here the last 24 hours we've kind of popped up in activity a little bit. That's because of that region 2595 that kind of came out of the blue and is moving off to the west limb now. It'll probably disappear in the next day or so, so it probably will drop back down to these low levels, which doesn't really help amateur radio propagation. Switching to your solar storm conditions, you can see we've been very, very quiet since that massive solar storm that we had just a couple weeks ago that lasted for almost a week in itself. But things have been extremely quiet. We had popped up here around the 20th for just a minor bit of storm conditions for a very short period. It just couldn't last, though. This is due to that fast wind, but again, the solar wind configuration was wrong. And so most of this actually ended up helping amateur radio because the field was northward. But we are now coming down out of that fast wind, and things will continue to quiet down and will probably be like that for the next couple weeks. Switching to your solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are still coming down from that fast wind that's given us kind of an on and off again storming. We don't expect all that much more from it at this point as things begin to calm down. At high latitudes, NOAA's expecting maybe about a 20 to 30% chance of minor storm conditions. At mid latitudes, only about a 15, maybe up to 25%. It's really kind of hard to tell. It only if that field configuration flips over will we see more active storming. Switching to your solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, pretty much everything is in the green when it comes to solar flares. We are watching that region 2595 as it's popped up very, very quickly and may be a threat as it continues to grow, but for right now, it's still not a problem for M-class flares, so you amateur radio operators don't have to worry about any radio blackouts anytime soon. But the only issue you really have to worry about here is this marginal solar flux. We barely have enough flux to keep the bands in good state for propagation, so it's kind of marginal, and it will continue to be like that. So this week, the space weather is pretty much quieting down. We're kind of looking at the lull between storms because that huge coronal hole that's now transiting the backside in a couple weeks will be rotating back into the Earth strike zone. And this is the coronal hole that gave us that extended period of solar storming just a couple weeks ago. So we're expecting a lot of the same. So your aurora photographers, you make sure you get some sleep over the next couple weeks because you're going to have to be up and ready to shoot the gorgeous views that you're going to see. And you amateur radio operators and GPS operators, enjoy the quiet because the band should be good over the next couple weeks. I'm Tamitha Skov. Thank you for watching.
So nice to have Dr. T back with us this week. Now, Bob, I understand. I'm having a Karnak moment, as a matter of fact. Let's see. I wish I had a turban. You're playing with wire? Is that right?
Wire. Yes.
Or as we say down here.
Coax wire.
War. That's war.
War. Yeah, we're playing with coax wire. That is exactly correct. Tamitha Skov is wonderful. I get so many emails about her reports, and we're really glad she's here. You've heard me talk about it so many times, and I've done some things on it, some sessions, but we're going to do another one on coaxial antennas. In all of my 60 years of amateur radio, I just don't find anything that touches them. And there's many reasons why. First of all, they're broadbanded. They're extremely broadbanded. You do a 75-meter antenna and you don't need a tuner. You don't need a tuner anywhere. So it eliminates the need for a tuner. Takes something out of the line you don't need. You feed it direct, the 50-ohm cable, and you can have pretty much a flat antenna throughout the entire band. There's nothing like that. It's only the coaxial dipole. And the antenna has no exposed metal, so there's not a lot of static buildup. And you must use coax with a 0.66 velocity factor. That's the most important thing. And a lot of people will tell you, oh, it'll work with anything. No, it won't. It'll work, but not great. And last but not least, here's a website you might want to look at, IAC Antenna, International Antenna Corporation, IAC Antenna. These guys are the masters at building it. But we're going to give you some little tips here that you can build your own. I've built many of them, and it's very simple. You use a piece of RG58. You don't need 8. You don't need it. But it's got to be the old milky type center conductor, not the foam stuff. And there's how you do it. It's very simple to make this happen. And now we're going to do it. I'm actually going to build one. And here are all of the different links and so on. There's the cool part of it. You can make this with 3 different types of end pieces. And what it does is give you greater bandwidths. I personally like to use twin lead, regular old 300 ohm twin lead. And you come up here, your coax is going to split. And you see you leave that center conductor alone. It runs from end to end. Do not cut it. But you cut at that center, you cut the shield. And that's how you feed it. The hot goes here, and the shield goes here. Down here, you tie it all together. The shield and the center, and the twin lead. Now, you can use another piece of coax. It works quite well. It won't be quite as long as in its bandwidth, but good enough. Or you can use a piece of number 16 copper wire. And so that all works extremely well, no problem. And the dimensions were as we showed you a while ago. Now, what do you do about the center insulator? This is a kind of a killer. And this is very simple. I've done this many years. I take a piece of plexiglass, a piece of printed circuit board, whatever. Plexiglass works best. And you just drill 6 holes. And you weave the RG58 in and around it. Now, this is, remember, this piece is going to be maybe 120 foot long. So I do this first. I run the 120 foot all the way through it, center it up, then I cut it. And that makes a great center insulator. A mounting system, I guess, is what we should say. Here's another way you can do it. You can do that with a coax connector if you would like to do that. Now here comes the good part. The antenna has one weak point, and that is the feed line. Remember, right at the feed point, we cut the shield, so it's not real strong there. That's why you take that center insulator that I just showed you. You got to mount that, and you can do if you have a tower or something to come off of. But what happens? Like in my case, what do you do if you don't have that? You have trees that are 230 foot apart. So what you do is you do a messenger line. This works really good. I don't use pulleys ever because pulleys will cause you problems. I use carabiners, if you know what they are. We get up into the trees to do that, or just blow the rope up there and let it go. You'll be okay. I recommend every once in a while you might move them around a little bit so they don't grow into trees. But that's the simple part of the coaxial dipole. Now we're going to get real serious. I'm going to show you a couple of things before we close this part out. Here is how you do it. This might be real crude, but it's going to show you what's going on. Here we go. Let me get it all set up here. Put it here so you can see it. You see what we did here? We split the shield, pull that out, and here is where we left the center conductor that goes end to end, and the shield feeds the center conductor of the feed line. The other shield feeds the shield of the feed line. That's how simple that is. Now that's why you have to have a nice support for it, and it works great. Here's a couple of other things. What are you going to do? What's a messenger line? I know a lot of people say, what's a messenger line? A messenger line is nothing but a piece of rope. Good rope. This is Dacron rope. You could pull a car with this stuff. It's extremely strong. And it's Dacron inside, but it's got this outside of nylon so the weather won't get to it and the sunlight will not deteriorate. I've got pieces of this that's been up for 20 years, and it works great. And what you do with it, and I'll do this as I'm talking. I should have maybe pulled the microphone over a little better. All you have to do for a messenger line is support the coax in the antenna. And you know, there's a lot of wire antennas you could do this to also, and let all of the strength be done with the rope. And here's how you do it. It's very simple. This rope would go from tree to tree or whatever you mount it with, and you wire tie about every foot or so up and down the line. You wire tie the antenna to it. And that's the way it's done. I showed you what you can do to cause the center insulator to be good. But here's the real fix for it. And this comes from our friends at IAC. I'm telling you, they have done a marvelous thing here. Let me get all this other stuff out of the way. They have done a really cool thing with their center insulator. If you look at their website, you can see it. Here, I'll show you here. This is great. What Dave did years ago. You're looking at an antenna from IAC that's 20-some years old, and I just took it down about 2 weeks ago. And you see here, it's all in a vacuum center insulator. What a cool deal. Take that and hang it up with the tree from the center or your tower, but it's all vacuum formed. This is really cool. As I said, this thing's 20-some years old. That's what happens when you go to the IAC guys. But if you want to homebrew it, I just showed you how to do it. And I just simply love coaxial dipoles. And why? Because they really, really work. And I have phase winds. You can go on my QRZ page and see how to take a pair of them and phase them. And they get pretty crazy when you do that, because you could get just about 15 dB front to back on 75 meters. Think about that. Think about that. It's really good. And last but not least, I have to show you this, because once in a while, when I get with some of you guys and gals that try to do some of this and you haven't seen it, hey, I learned it 2 years ago. When you go to trim back your coax, any size coax, use an awl. And this is why you want 100% or very close to shield. This is how you do it. Yes, it takes time to do it, but pull it back strand by strand. And when you get finished, you're going to have a very strong shield. Otherwise, if you don't do this, you're going to end up with pieces of it on the ground, and you lost a lot of the strength. And you do this all the way down. But see, then you have 100% of that shield. You haven't lost any of it. A lot of guys will cut it. No, you never want to cut shield, because when you do that, you have destroyed the strength that you need. So I hope some of that helps you. And I get to talk about my favorite antenna. And MIT did it back in 1938 for the government. It was a radar antenna for the war. And that's why they did it, because they didn't have to have any tuners. They plugged it in the back of a transmitter and bingo, it was there. And that's why they designed it. The MIT engineers did it. So there you go from my side of antennas. You can look on my QRZ page and see some of it put up. But then you need a transmitter to drive it. So what do? You call one of your dealers. We hope it's DX Engineering, and buy an ICOM. Let's listen.
September is National Preparedness Month. Set some time aside and review your emergency communications plan for air, land, or sea. Make sure your ICOM equipment is ready to go for any situation. ID 5100A has taken innovation and mobility to the next level. With its touchscreen and internal GPS, this radio is a must-have while assessing a situation. The large 5.5-inch display responds naturally to the touch. DV-DV Dual Watch receives both FM-FM and FM-DB mode signals simultaneously. Show your position, course, and speed with the integrated GPS receiver, and the optional VS3 Bluetooth headset provides hands-free communication. Connect your Android to ICOM's most popular dual-band transceiver, the ID51A+. Filled with enhanced functions and digital features, you won't want to be without this handheld communication solution. Send and receive text messages and photos. Transfer data 3.5 times faster with DV Fast Data Mode. Communicate with the touch of your fingertips. Perfect for small spaces. The IC7100 is the ideal D-Star option for wherever you may be. Angled control head and touchscreen for quick intuitive operation, large internal speaker for clear digital audio, and it's perfect for multiband and all-mode communications. Get more information on all the great ICOM radios at icomamerica.com/amateur.
And you can tune in and enter to win after each episode of Ham Nation Go to icomamerica.com/hamnation, register to win for some great swag prizes like t-shirts and hats, and while you're there, learn how you could win in the monthly grand prize drawing for a new radio. For September, that radio is going to be the ICOM ID 51A Plus dual band, dual watch, VHF, UHF, digital transceiver, analog and D-Star, near me repeater function, enhanced DPRS, fast DV data mode, and a lot more. So go to icomamerica.com/hamnation after this and each episode of Ham Nation and register to win. And we've got another prize ICOM is giving away shortly here. This will be given away the 15th of next month. It's the IC7300, the new software-defined radio that ICOM recently released, and everyone's really liking. We'll be giving one of those away on Amateur Logic. Go to amateurlogic.tv/contest. Check out the details. If you have not already entered that contest, it's very simple. Get all the details there. Someone's going to win a great rig there, complete with power supply, antenna, and coax from MFJ. Well, you know, Randy has been building a receiver kit for the last few weeks, and it's been pretty interesting because it doesn't have an IF section in it. It's a little bit different, simplifies it a little bit, takes some of the hard components that you have to wind, like toroids and such, out of the equation. And this week he finishes that project up and gives us a little demonstration of it.
Hello, Randy, K7AGE, with part 5 of the ZZRX-40 40-meter direct conversion receiver build. Okay, time to start building the enclosure without soldering until all the pieces are in place. Hold together with tape on the corners or with a few rubber bands around it, then solder all 4 edges and 4 corners. It says to break all the pieces apart. So let's go ahead and break these. You just bend them and they should snap. There it goes. And you want to be careful how you handle these because you don't want to be scratching up the red solder mask. Okay, so the next step is to sand or file these edges down. They're kind of sharp. Okay, so I filed down the edges, and it only took like maybe 3 to 6 very light passes with the file. When you are putting these pieces together, you want to make sure you have all the shiny corners together because this is where you're going to solder. This is the outside, and this is the inside. So I'm going to try and put this together now. Okay, so I don't need the top. I'm going to get that out of the way. And I've played with this a little bit on my own here before starting the camera. And you end up not having enough hands. Okay, so I have a bunch of the blue tape here cut. So I'm just going to start putting these together a little bit. And it's going to be a little sloppy when you first start. I'm going to add another piece of tape. So you get the idea. Just keep working at this as tight and square as you can. Just checking it. I just want to see what it looks like when I just put the top on it. It feels flush around all the edges. I think I'm ready to try and solder some of this. Okay, so I'm ready to give this a try. On my variable temperature iron, I've turned the temperature basically all the way up. You don't need to solder all these seams. You can if you want, but it's not needed. Try not to melt the camera. Get some solder on the iron here. And I was able to put this in my little vise. Oh, that flowed quickly. Yeah, that worked nice. A little solder in the 3 corners here. Here it flowed. And on this piece here. And it bridged across. So I think that's going to be okay. Solder. There, boom, it flowed. So I'm going to pause and take this out of the vise and take a look at it before I do any more soldering. Okay, I'm just going to check the edges here around the sides and the bottom. They all feel flush. Let's do this corner here. I'm doing it about 1/4 inch down. And I'm ready to do the last top corner. Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to take the tape off now and just see how it all looks. If it looks good, I'll do some more soldering. That is really solid. So I'm just going to do a couple more tacks around the edges. Okay, so I've soldered in the corners, then 1 or 2 places in the center of all the joints. And it's really very, very strong. It appears to be very square. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is to place the board through the inside so that the connectors are sticking through, and go ahead and put the nuts on. So I have a lock washer and a nut for the BNC, a little nut for the audio jack. And then I'm just going to use a wrench here and be very careful as I tighten the nut that I don't scratch the case. The red will scratch. It's a pair of needle nose, but be real careful not to scratch it. I'm going to step ahead here a couple pages. The variable frequency oscillator. So there's a trim cap here that you use to set the lower frequency range on the 40 meter band. Well, once the cover's on, you can't adjust that. So I'm going to connect this up, and I'm going to use my FT817 to receive the local oscillator so I can determine what frequency it's on. And we turn it on, and what they say to do is to turn the tuning control all the way counterclockwise and then adjust the capacitor for it to be at 7.0 megahertz. So, and I'm using a plastic tuning stick with just a small metal blade in there. Well, I got lucky there. It's at 6999. I think I'm just going to leave it there. The next thing I want you to do is just place the top cover, install the washers and nuts for the two pots. Now put the 4 corner screws in. And I have a nut driver that fits the potentiometer's nuts, so I can use that to tighten those. Put the knobs on. It's all done. See if it works. The volume. Now, this volume isn't in the audio stage. It's right across the basically antenna. So if you get a very strong signal, it may overload. You may have to turn it down. The tuning is very fast.
And that's where I got a computer sitting on the bottom there, so anyway. Oh yeah, that's in the shack here. Only what you can see. Wow, trouble there, son. I'll get you.
It's birthday again, and we bought a train for just a little bit here, and then I gotta go make some dinner here, so we'll talk to you later. And hello to the other station out there, Bruce. I'm sorry I didn't get your call, but I can hear you really good too. So have a good evening, and I'll talk to you again. K6XW.
So tuning the receiver with this small knob requires very fine adjustments. The mod I'm going to do is replace it with this big old knob that I found, and now I'll have a much larger diameter that I can adjust.
UOU, Montana. You faded out towards the end.
Prior to the
USB fade, I would have given you about a 4x7, but the band is changing around a little bit. But often in the evening, I don't get real good conditions into Southern California. I'm going to turn it over to Ed and see how he's copying you. W8 EDW WB6 UOU.
So, this brings it to the end. I finished building the ZZRX40 40-meter direct conversion receiver kit, and it was a lot of fun. I know it was long, a lot of long videos, but I wanted to show the detail of all the steps to build this kit. It's a simple kit. There's not a lot of parts. It's fairly easy to build, and mine worked first time off. So the elegance of this receiver design is that it's very simple. 2 integrated circuits, no tuning, no coils to wind. This won't perform like an ICOM 7300. You're gonna have to be very sensitive with the tuning, and the larger knob really helps that. It's a small box, and this and a wire. Probably doesn't need much of a wire. You could go outside and if you're out somewhere, plug it in and then tune around and see what you can pick up. I think you'll be amazed. It seems to work very well. So that's all. It's Randy, K7AGE 73, and I got to think about some other videos to make. Thanks for watching.
That is a really nice looking little kit, Randy. I like the way that it all came together. At the end, it almost looks like, a commercial product that you bought somewhere, but build it yourself at home. I like the fact that it was simple to do, as you said there, and it looked like you got pretty good performance out of it, too. Thanks for doing that. And you might notice Randy said at the end of the video there, those of you who built along at home, send him photos at K7AGE at K7AGE.com. He'd like to see your build of it, how it turned out, and maybe a picture of you holding it too. Well, last week I asked a question on here, and this came from the general class amateur radio exam. How are radio communications usually affected by the charged particles that reach the Earth from solar coronal holes? Well, we had a winner of this DX Engineering ceramic coffee mug, and that is Dick Burgess, W6VS. He said the answer is B. HF communications are disturbed. I've got another question for next week, and that's going to be also from the general exam. We're stepping it up a little bit here. Which of the following is an advantage of ceramic capacitors as compared to other types of capacitors? A, tight tolerances. B, high stability. C, higher capacitance for a given volume. Or D, comparatively low cost. If you think you know the answer to that, well, send your answer to me, hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and you might win this MFJ 113 large, in fact, giant 12/24-hour clock. It's an LED alarm clock, courtesy of our friends at MFJ. Makes it real easy. I mean, you can even take your glasses off and still read this thing here. Perfect for the shack. If you want to win that, send your answer to me, hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and you might just be next week's winner. And now let's, let me look at the sheet here. I think maybe we got Val here tonight. Huh, Val?
Hey, George. Yes, I'm on tonight. And, I thought it would be fun to see what went on behind the scenes of the world's largest QSLing project. And I'm talking about, y'all remember the Centennial event? That was over a year and a half ago. But they finally started getting all those cards out, and I thought you guys would kind of find this interesting. Dave Patton, NN1N, did a presentation on this at our Society of Midwest Contesters Club. We had our annual festival a month ago, and hopefully you'll find this as interesting as I did. All right, well, I'd like to welcome aboard Dave Patton, NN1N. Dave was first licensed at the age of 12. His father was a very active ham and got him interested in the hobby. And he is currently the Field Services and Radio Sport Manager at the ARRL. Welcome aboard, Dave.
Hey, Val. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Dave, why don't you tell us about what is involved with being a Field Services and Radio Sport Manager at the ARRL?
The position of Field Services Manager and Radio Sport Manager were merged together a number of years ago, and what came out of that was one of the larger departments that have ever existed here at headquarters. And inside the department, we have all the on-air operating, the contest branch, the awards branch, which includes DXCC and WAS and VUCC, and the W1AW station itself and all of its operations. Everything to do with emergency preparedness is in this department. And the field services, which is one of the largest parts of the operation. We have about 10,000 volunteers scattered around the country and a few overseas, but the whole operation is all the stuff that ARRL does that involves the member at an on-air level and a field service level.
Wow, that's a lot of hats. You must be very busy. I don't know how you do it in 40 hours a week. You have a great, some great information about the whole centennial event at the ARRL, because that was kind of part of your baby, right?
Yeah, it sure was. The centennial was one of those things we'd been dreaming about for, probably at least 5 or 6 years. Everybody sort of recognized the importance of what was happening. And when the board decided, we really need to have an on-air operating event, they turned me loose to create a set of rules and a couple aspects of this program. One thing that we had not done at ARRL since I've been here and even before me was create an operating event where the average member, the member himself, was worth points. Usually in all of our operating activities, you're chasing people that were life members and higher. Those are the things like the Hiram Percy Maxim birthday events. So I wanted everybody to be involved at all levels. And so there were people chasing people, and targets were people who had never had running experience on the air and attracting and pileups. And that was one part of the Centennial operating. We had the QSO party. The other part was putting W1AW in each state, and as it turns out, most of the territories. And I wrote hundreds of letters to people who I knew and who I knew could operate and create an environment where other people would be brought into their stations or other stations used at the same time to share the operating experience of W1AW, knowing that would be fully appreciated around the world because of the few times we have loaned the call out. It's always a big deal.
How many people participated in the whole centennial event, either operating or just making contacts?
Good question. We used Logbook of the World, so everybody who submitted a log and made any contacts at all was included in our numbers. About 29,000 call signs had logs entered. Over 3,000 different people used W1AW, which is a significant number, from the approximately 108 operations that had W1AW. We also had the W100AW operation going on, and that operation, that call was farmed out to some of the conventions around the country. 6 more of those. So we had W100AW stroke 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 in Dayton. So there was always something going on. People who chased awards were probably 5,000 or 6,000. We sold about 3,000 WAS plaques. And the WAS plaques were only available if you worked W1AW in 50 states. So that was quite an achievement. Many people around the world really were interested in chasing it.
Once this ended, that the QSLing for this just had to be a nightmare to try and get this all squared away.
It wasn't a nightmare, but it was certainly a challenge. We knew that W1AW QSL cards would be collectible based on things we've done in the past, and I wanted them to be collectible. I wanted them too. I'm not just an employee, I'm a client. So we knew this was going to happen, and we budgeted for it, and we planned for it. And what ended up happening was it was truly the largest QSLing effort ever in the history of ham radio. And it kind of turned into some project which was harder than I thought, because no one really had done this before. There were about 3.5 million QSOs made with the W1AW calls, and we estimated we'd have to send out at least 800,000 cards to people. For the first time, we offered the chance for U.S. stations to receive their cards from WNW through the Bureau, and about 4,000 people signed up to get those, which was gratifying, but also a big job. And a few of them also sent direct requests as well as requested them through the Bureau. So we had 5,000 or 6,000 direct requests to deal with at the same time. And you might imagine the difficulty in that when there's 115 different logs and trying to find all these people in each log and combine their mailings to try to save them money, or they sent one SASE and wanted 5 cards. And if you've ever had to deal with QSLs on a normal basis, this was that times about 2,000. So it was quite a challenge.
I know when I just get a stack this big, it's a lot of work. And even if with a label printer, and I print the labels and I have to peel and put them on there, and then put it in my computer that I QSL them. I mean, that's a lot of work just for a stack this big. I mean, how are you able to put all that information, all that stuff? It had to be a challenge to figure a way for that.
That's a great question, Val. And I thought long and hard about that. We have the software that Delta Fox 3 Charlie Bravo has created and modified over the years. It's called BV7. It allows you to print onto the card So we decided that that was by far the best way to do this. Every QSO was confirmed in Logbook of the World as soon as we could get the logs in. So the pressure was off, for confirmations for WAS and other awards, but that gave us a little extra time too to create the QSL cards and make the designs and try to make all the cards a little bit different. That was the goal. The color schemes are loosely based on state colors or university colors for that state. And sometimes they're just colors we made up because there were no official colors, which I was surprised at.
I can't even imagine all the boxes and pallets of cards for 800,000 QSL cards. So how many people had to help get this out the door?
Quite a few. Probably 15 to 20 people overall did participate in the processing of these. 13 pallets arrived at headquarters, the original print run from our local printer. And that took a lot of space up in the shipping area. There was a lot of extra moving and work done up there to accommodate those. And we had probably 8 to 10 people for 2 weeks up in the QSL Bureau, taking the cards out of the boxes and putting them in country order and U.S. district order. About 640,000 cards went overseas, and 200,000 went to stations in the U.S.
You said it's not too late to request cards, so if there's anybody out there that wants to get some cards, how can they go about requesting that? What's the best way?
The easiest way to do it is to write me, NN1N, at ARRL.org, and this is basically for people who made contacts with W1AW, and then just ask me in an email if they can get cards and whether they want them through the Bureau. If they want them through the Bureau, they have to have a fully funded account with their local Bureau, their district Bureau. And they can get them direct too. It's going to take a little while to go through all the files, but if they want them direct, then they'll need to either send us some cash or enough SASEs to cover that.
What percentage of the way are you done getting the cards out? So if people that don't have their card yet that requested them, don't panic, right? You're not quite done yet.
Yeah, don't panic. It is definitely going to take us a while. There's a few holdovers from round one. So round one basically took care of everyone's direct requests and all the Bureau cards. They're all out. And some people won't have them yet from their bureaus, and the bureaus are doing a really good job. Our Bureau volunteers around the country and around the world are doing a spectacular job, really, in getting this done.
Is there any new kind of event like that coming up anywhere in the near future? I know so many people love that centennial event.
Yeah, Val, I think there is going to be something. We're kind of working on the every other year schedule now, and we've had some planning discussions about what to do going forward. So nothing set in stone yet, but we definitely learn what people like and more things we can come up with that are really engaging, not just on the air. There's some in-person things that we can incorporate in that. We're looking at it, but it's a good question, and we get it, and we know we need to do more, and we're going to work on getting the resources to have that.
Well, I'm sure many of us look forward to that, and hopefully when those plans are announced, I can have you or Sean back on to tell us all about that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dave. I know you're busy. I'll let you get back to the QSL cards, and good luck in that next event.
Thanks for having me, Val.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And I thought I'd show this. I'm kind of proud of this. I just got my triple play plaque, so that's kind of cool. I had it for a while. I just didn't have Rhode Island CW confirmed, so I finally got that confirmed. As far as DX goes, we just have Delta 66 Delta, Comoros. They're on the air right now. I just worked them on 80 meters before the show. So they're very loud, good signals, good ops, good ears. So if you need them, make sure you get on the air and work that. This weekend, big active CQ Worldwide RIDDY's going to be going on this weekend. I'll be on the air for that, as well as some of our guys in the chat room like Marty. Also, Texas and Maine QSO parties are this weekend as well. And it's not too late to head on over to Pigeon Forge for W4DXCC. That's going on this weekend. Friday's their boot camp. And then Saturday is the DXCC convention. And that's all I've got for this week. So I think it's time to head it over to Colorado for K1DDN. Amanda, you there?
I am here. Thanks, Val, for that wonderful segment. I can only imagine. I'm a printer myself, so I can't even imagine that mass quantity of QSL cards. That's crazy. All right, you guys, let's get right down to it. We've got some announcements here. We have the VOA Special Event Station coming up. WC8 VOA will operate as special event station to celebrate the 72nd anniversary of the Voice of America Bethany Relay Station. That's going to come up this Saturday, the 24th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, you guys. So be sure to listen out for them. Also, we have the Radio Expo this Saturday at the Boone County Fairgrounds in Belvidere, Illinois, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Val, are you going to make it to that?
I'm sorry, I was typing in the chat room. What was the question?
Are you making it to the Radio Expo at Belvidere, Illinois this weekend?
No, I'm going to do my first time ever doing CQ Worldwide RTTY. Normally we're at W4DXCC and we always miss CQ Worldwide RTTY. So thought I got the Flex already and the 7851, and we're going to do a multi-single operation here for RTTY.
Very good. I think I actually saw you Facebooking about getting your 7851 all ready for that. So
I did. It took me a while.
Good job. We won't hassle you about how long it took you. No worries. Okay. The next question, Bob, this one's for you. Randy actually had this question, and somebody said, I second that. Bob, does a wet messenger affect the performance or tuning of your coaxial dipole that you showed us?
No, it doesn't do that because it's you've got the rubber from the outside, of the coax, and it's not going to touch the shield. And I've had these things up for, it goes on to probably 1976 was my first one, and I've never had a problem with anything like that. So,
okay.
Not to worry.
And Gordo here, and I agree. Mine's been in many a rain when California used to have rain. Remember those days, Don? And no, my distributed capacity dipole has never changed very much. And because it's so broad-banded, if it changed 100 kilohertz, you wouldn't know it because SWR would be low at each end always.
Okay. And the next question, Bob, again for the coaxial dipole. Can it be installed as an inverted V configuration?
Well, I showed a picture both ways. Mine actually are, one of them, the 75 meter of inverted V, the 40 meters are flat tops. So you can get a lot of interesting arguments about this. I've never really seen a big deal one way or the other. So put it up. I mean, come on, guys. I get these guys that, but put it up. Gordo and I talk about that all the time, don't we, Gordo? Make it work. You'll find out.
Yeah, just get on the air with it. Don't worry.
That's so funny. Gordo, I'm going to give this question to you. It was originally for Don, but I bet you have the answer as well. This question is from David, W5TN. He says, I have an amplifier with two 8874 tubes. Should I leave it on all day or turn it off on several times a day during idle periods? What is best for tubes?
Well, it all depends as to how the tubes are constructed, the tube circuitry constructed. Normally, they've got a soft start, so probably leave it off. It will not make the electric company happy because you've turned it off and it's no longer sucking up juice. But with the tube amplifier, the newer ones all have a soft bring up and shut down, so it's not going to hurt those tubes. Old amps, you want to just leave them on, or with a variac, turn them down. But nope, you're good to go on and off. That'd be fine.
Okay, thank you, Gordo. The last question was actually for me from Kevin, ZL1KFM. He had asked, he said he knew that Jeff and I assisted with fires here in Colorado, not being a U.S. ham or firefighter. What is the radio protocol for amateur and radio fire communications? What can you use, and can you interconnect between the two services? Now, I hope you guys remember the answer from your technician exam on this, but no, we cannot interconnect other agencies' radio traffic into ham radio. There are two exceptions, and I remember one. So, Gordo, I'm hoping you can help me answer this. I know that you can play space shuttle traffic over amateur radio. Gordo, what is the other one?
Let's see. No music, no police or fire radio calls. In fact, even marine radio calls are not permitted to be rebroadcast over ham radio. So one has to be very, very cautious that you're not relaying any other radio service that's likely protected by the Privacy Act, which is most of the other radio services. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the space shuttle, thank you, Don, and the space station are exempt. Yes, we can rebroadcast them. Good point. Thanks, Don.
Yes, thank you, Don. I knew we were talking in the background space shuttle, not sure what else. Space station goes along with it. And Val, one last question for you. What is, again, the email address for Dave there at the ARRL where people can still request those QSL cards?
It's just nn1n@arrl.net, I believe is what that was.
Okay,
I can
thanks.
verify here if I pull my email up here real quick.
Okay, and in the meantime, I'll show Don and Gordo this. You guys. Hey, does this look familiar? We also use Ubiquity. I'll show you a couple more. We've got this bullet here, or this are Microtik. And
boy, she's all messed out, isn't she?
That's a titanium bullet.
Wow.
Oh. And we actually use these for repeater systems, our microwave repeater systems, and we use 5.8 gigahertz on the amateur radio bands in that band. And we use a backbone all across New Mexico, all the way up to Cheyenne, Wyoming. So we kind of have our own personal internet, not really mesh per se, but it is a backbone of internet that we use. So the same but different. So anyhow, right. Val, did you go ahead and, or Don, did you have a comment about that?
Well, are you using ham radio frequencies for that backbone, or are you using commercial frequencies?
We're using ham radio frequencies, and Jeff has walked around the corner here. So it ends up being about like 5.6 gig instead of 5.8.
And the only question I have is, how do you ID? Because with the mesh nodes, the ID is sent out digitally. So are you digitally IDing your ham call?
I do believe that it is a digital ID. Jeff is shaking his head yes in the background. So yes, it is digital.
Okay, well that's would be my only concern, is that if you're putting on the ham radio band that is properly ID'd.
Absolutely, we always have to make sure we do that. So, the only thing,
Amanda,
Val, did you? Yes, Bob.
Yes.
Amanda, I have something for you. Look what happened in Portland this week. Look at this. Look what happened in Portland. Look who got together.
Awesome.
We never see. We only hear him on 20 meters. But there's old Steve and Katie. I got that picture from them.
Well, and I think you got something else from W7UDI, didn't you? You heard him this weekend.
Well, I heard a bunch of people, and here's about a minute of it. You'll recognize some of them. Too bad Don's left.
It's Crystal, Bob. Yeah, we're running an IC 7200, and we have a LTG Electronics auto tuner. And then it goes to a G5RV Junior that's on the corner of the house, about, maybe 10 feet, 15 feet up. K9EID in the Ozarks there. This is K8YVJ Cincinnati Short Rib.
Are at the birthplace of Route 66, and we're listening.
November 8, Sierra Foxtrot, Ontario.
Oh, wow. I got an SFO out of that. Where are you?
And then this happened.
Well, thank you, Bob. Yeah, Short Rib, he's a fun kid there, so glad you got to catch up with him. Anyhow, I won't hold you because I'm sure you have a wicked pile up there. So anyhow, thanks so much, and nice to hear you on the radio. We will see you on Wednesday. W6R, K1DDN.
That was...
Hey, you're still there. Hi, Steve.
Steve.
Hi, Bob. Hey, Jeff and Amanda. I just heard you guys wanted to say hi. W7UDI.
Hi, Steve. Nice to hear you. You sound great in Colorado.
Hello, Steve.
All right, 73, K1DDN.
All right, everybody. Oh,
that was a great week, let me tell you. I think we ended up with about somewhere around 3,500 to 4,000 points here in Springfield, and we were one of the week when some of those guys would get up to 6,000 and 7,000. But it's a lot of fun, and we love it every year. But I wanted to play those little clips of the short rib, you and Steve and Jeff. So there you go, everybody. See, they are alive and well on ham radio. Thank you, Amanda.
No, thank you, Bob. I think this guy records everything. That's great. And he handles, I'll tell you what, if you want some lessons in running a pileup, listen to Bob sometime, run W6R. He does a wonderful job. He takes a little bit of time to be personal, but he keeps it moving very awesomely. So good job there, Bob.
Thank you.
That's all I have, you guys, tonight. We've had some wonderful questions and a great show. So, Bob, you take it away.
Well, and I just wanted to say real quick, too, NN1N at ARRL.net. November at ARRL.net is a good email for Dave.
Thanks, Val.
Excellent. All right, everybody. Yeah, it was a good, fun show, and we'll be back next week. I think Ted Randall will be here, and we'll get all of the details on getting this wonderful show called Ham Nation up globally on WTWW. So 7-3, everybody. Best regards, and we'll see you next week right back here on the Twit Network. Thank you.